Let's talk about something we all know deep down, but hate to admit. Love isn't always enough. You can love someone with every fiber of your being and still be fundamentally incompatible with them. You can have incredible chemistry, share amazing memories, and genuinely care about each other, yet be absolutely wrong for each other long term. Today, we're diving into 7 signs that you're in an incompatible relationship. And trust me, recognizing these signs could save you years of heartache. Before we start, I need you to understand something crucial. Incompatibility doesn't mean failure. It doesn't mean either of you is broken or wrong. It simply means you're not right together. 2 perfectly good people can make a perfectly terrible couple. And staying in an incompatible relationship isn't romantic or noble. It's a recipe for resentment, frustration, and the slow death of everything that once felt magical between you. Sign 1. Your core values are in constant conflict. The first and most fundamental sign of incompatibility is when your core values, not preferences, but deep values, are in direct opposition. I'm not talking about one person liking action movies while the other prefers comedies. I'm talking about fundamental beliefs about how life should be lived. Maybe one of you values financial security above all else while the other values experience and adventure, even if it means living paycheck to paycheck. Maybe one wants kids desperately while the other is firmly child-free. Maybe one believes in traditional gender roles while the other believes in complete equality. Maybe faith is central to one person's life while the other is atheist. Here's the thing about core values. They don't change. You can compromise on where to eat dinner, what color to paint the bedroom, or whose family to visit for the holidays. But you can't compromise on whether or not to have children. You can't meet halfway on believing in God. These aren't issues where someone's mind will magically change with enough love. When core values clash, every major decision becomes a battle. Every life choice requires one person to betray something fundamental about themselves. You find yourselves having the same fights over and over because there's no resolution that honors both of your truths. If you're constantly trying to convince each other to see the world differently, you're not in a relationship. You're in a debate that nobody can win. Sign 2. You bring out the worst in each other. In a compatible relationship, you inspire each other to be better. In an incompatible one, you trigger each other's worst qualities. Around them, you become someone you don't like, maybe jealous, controlling, anxious, or angry. They become defensive, withdrawn, critical, or dishonest. It's like you're both allergic to each other, causing inflammation wherever you touch. This isn't about occasional bad moods or rough patches. This is about a consistent pattern where your presence in each other's lives makes you both worse people. You find yourself doing things you swore you'd never do, checking their phone, picking fights, keeping score. They become versions of themselves their friends don't recognize. The scary part is how gradual this can be. You don't wake up one day as this worse version of yourself. It happens slowly, one compromise of character at a time, until you look in the mirror and don't recognize who you've become. You might blame them for making you act this way, but the truth is, your incompatibility creates a toxic dynamic that poisons both of you. When friends or family express concern about how you've changed, listen. When you find yourself constantly anxious, walking on eggshells, or feeling like you're going crazy, pay attention. Compatible partners make each other feel more like themselves, not less. Sign 3. Your communication styles are oil and water. Communication incompatibility goes deeper than just not communicating well. It's when your fundamental ways of processing and sharing information are so different that understanding feels impossible. One person needs to talk through every feeling immediately while the other needs space to process internally. One speaks in logic and facts, while the other speaks in emotions and metaphors. One addresses conflict head-on, while the other shuts down completely. You find yourselves having conversations where you're literally speaking different languages. They think they're being clear. You have no idea what they mean. you think you're expressing yourself perfectly. They're hearing something completely different. It's not that either of you is bad at communication. You're just incompatible in how you communicate. This becomes exhausting. Every conversation requires translation. Every discussion feels like work. You need mediators, friends, therapists, anyone who can help you understand each other. You spend more time clarifying what you meant than actually connecting. Eventually, you stop trying to communicate about anything important because it's just too hard. Sign 4. Your life goals are heading in opposite directions. Compatible couples don't need identical dreams, but they need dreams that can coexist. Incompatible couples have life goals that actively contradict each other. One wants to travel the world while the other wants to build a stable home. One wants to climb the corporate ladder while the other wants a simple life. One wants to live in the city forever while the other dreams of rural life. These aren't small differences you can work around. These are fundamental visions of what a good life looks like. And here's what happens when you try to force it. One person sacrifices their dreams and builds resentment. Or both people compromise so much that neither gets the life they wanted. You know you're facing this incompatibility when every future conversation ends in silence or argument. When you can't imagine a 5-year plan that makes both of you happy. When one person's dream achievement is the other person's nightmare scenario. Love might make you want to sacrifice your dreams for them, but that sacrifice will eventually turn into resentment. Sign 5. Your energy levels and lifestyles can't sync. This might sound superficial, but lifestyle incompatibility can destroy relationships just as surely as any other type. One person needs constant social stimulation, while the other needs solitude to recharge. One thrives on routine, while the other needs spontaneity. One is a morning person who's asleep by 9, while the other comes alive at midnight. At first, these differences might seem charming. Opposites attract, right? But over time, they become sources of constant friction. The introvert feels drained and overwhelmed by their partner's social needs. The extrovert feels lonely and restricted. The night owl and morning person never have quality time when both are at their best. You find yourselves living parallel lives in the same space. Your rhythms never sync up. Someone's always compromising, always operating outside their natural state. The spontaneous person feels trapped by routine. The routine-oriented person feels destabilized by constant change. Instead of complementing each other, you're constantly stepping on each other's toes. Sign 6. Physical and emotional intimacy needs are vastly different. Intimacy, incompatibility isn't just about mismatched sex drives, though that's part of it. It's about fundamentally different needs for closeness, touch, emotional connection, and personal space. One person needs constant physical affection, while the other feels suffocated by too much touch. One needs deep emotional conversations daily, while the other finds that intensity draining. This incompatibility creates a pursuing, distancing dynamic that becomes toxic over time. The person who needs more intimacy feels rejected, unloved, and starved for connection. The person who needs less feels pressured, invaded, and guilty for not being enough. Both people end up feeling fundamentally wrong, too needy or too cold, too much or not enough. No amount of communication fixes this because it's not a communication problem, it's a fundamental incompatibility in how you give and receive love. You can understand each other's needs perfectly and still be unable to meet them without betraying your own nature. Sign 7. You can't respect each other's differences. The ultimate sign of incompatibility is when you've moved from accepting differences to being unable to respect them. You don't just disagree with their choices. You can't understand how any reasonable person could think that way. You don't just have different interests. You actively disdain theirs. You don't just have different approaches. You believe their way is fundamentally wrong. This contempt might be subtle, eye rolls, dismissive comments, jokes that aren't really jokes, or it might be overt arguments where you're trying to fundamentally change who they are. Either way, once respect is gone, the relationship is already over, even if you haven't admitted it yet. You know you've hit this point when you're embarrassed by them in public, when you find yourself making excuses for them to friends, when you can't imagine them successfully navigating life without you to correct them. When their different perspective isn't interesting anymore, it's just wrong. The hard truth about incompatibility. Here's what nobody tells you about incompatible relationships. They often include real love. You can genuinely love someone and still be poison for each other. You can have beautiful moments and still be fundamentally wrong together. You can try everything, therapy, compromise, time, and still be incompatible. Staying in an incompatible relationship doesn't make you loyal or romantic. It makes you both smaller, sadder versions of yourselves. It prevents both of you from finding compatible partners who could actually make you happy. It turns love into a prison instead of a foundation for growth. The brave thing isn't staying and suffering. The brave thing is admitting the incompatibility and loving each other enough to let go. Because real love wants the other person to be happy, even if that happiness is found elsewhere. If you recognize multiple signs from this list, it's time for honest reflection. Not every relationship is meant to last forever, and that's okay. Sometimes the best thing two people can do for each other is admit they're incompatible and free each other to find better matches.